Right now, more than 20 billion kilometers away from Earth, something built by human hands is doing something it should never be able to do again. In the freezing silence beyond the heliosphere, where temperatures collapse toward absolute zero and cosmic radiation never rests, a relic from another era has broken the quiet. Voyager 2, a machine designed in the 1970s, officially dormant, abandoned to the dark, has sent back a signal. No commands were sent. No systems were supposed to be alive. And yet, a heartbeat appeared on NASA's screens. Steady, deliberate, impossible. Inside that signal were coordinates pointing to an unexplored region of space and signs that Voyager may 2nd not have been alone out there after all. What followed would force scientists to confront an unsettling idea. This was not just a malfunction, not just a go signal, but the confirmation of something humanity has quietly feared since the day we first looked into the void. Voyager 2 was never meant to survive this long. Launched in 1977 as part of one of humanity's boldest scientific gambles, it was a fragile capsule of aluminum and circuits sent toward the outer planets with a mission that sounded simple on paper, but was almost reckless in practice. Photograph the gas giants, collect data, and then disappear into interstellar space. Engineers estimated a lifespan of 5 years, maybe 10 if luck was on their side. Yet, decades later, Voyager 2 had already rewritten history by flying past Jupiter and revealing the violent storms of its atmosphere, skimming Saturn and capturing the intricate structure of its rings, and becoming the only spacecraft ever to visit Uranus and Neptune, delivering images no one had dared to imagine. After that, it kept going, drifting farther and farther from its birthplace until in 2018, it crossed the heliopause, the invisible boundary where the sun's influence ends and true interstellar space begins, entering an environment so hostile that survival itself becomes an act of defiance. Out there, temperatures plunge toward minus 270 degrees Celsius. Cosmic rays batter every surface, and the nuclear power source that feeds Voyager weakens year after year like a candle slowly burning down in total darkness. By 2023, the inevitable seemed to arrive. Communications with Voyager 2 became erratic. Signals arrived fragmented, incomplete, and then suddenly there was nothing at all. Silence. Engineers tried for months to re-establish contact, knowing that every command took more than 22 hours to reach the probe and just as long for a response that never came. Screens stayed empty. Voyager 2 was declared dormant, a legend frozen in time, drifting endlessly through the void as a cosmic time capsule carrying the golden record, humanity's message of peace to whoever might find it. NASA shifted its focus to other missions, and Voyager became a closed chapter, a story already written. Then 11 years later, on a night like any other, operators at the Goldstone complex in California detected something strange buried in the cosmic background noise. A faint but regular signal too orderly to be natural. When they checked the coordinates, disbelief set in because they matched the theoretical position of Voyager 2 perfectly. At first, it was dismissed as an instrument error, a glitch, anything but the truth. Yet, every verification led to the same impossible conclusion. Voyager 2 was transmitting again. A spacecraft with depleted power, untouched by human commands, silent for over a decade, had somehow awakened on its own. Once the impossible fact was accepted that Voyager 2 was transmitting again, engineers turned their attention to the structure of the signal itself, expecting to find corrupted telemetry, residual noise, or the digital equivalent of a dying gasp from an aging machine. Yet, what they discovered immediately shattered those expectations. The transmission was not chaotic, not random, not degraded by the brutal conditions of interstellar space. Instead, it followed a perfectly ordered activation sequence. First, the power modules appeared to come back online. Then, the core memory systems were accessed, and only after that did the transmitter activate step by step in a sequence so methodical it resembled a checklist rather than a malfunction. This was not how systems fail. This was how systems are deliberately brought back to life. For the scientists watching the data unfold, it felt less like analyzing a machine and more like observing a procedure being executed with intention, as if someone or something understood Voyager 2's internal architecture well enough to wake it from a decade-long sleep. The confusion inside mission control quickly turned into unease because there was no scenario in which Voyager should have been capable of initiating such a process on its own after so many years without contact or sufficient energy. When cryptography specialists finally managed to interpret the contents of the transmission, the situation grew even more disturbing. The file Voyager 2 sent was not a diagnostic report, not a system status update, and not any format the probe had ever been programmed to generate. Inside was a complex binary sequence unlike anything previously recorded from the spacecraft. This was not noise. It was structured. It was intentional. And most unsettling of all, it did not originate from Earth. As analysts studied the signal more closely, a chilling realization emerged. This transmission was not a message being sent into the void. It was a response. Voyager 2 was not speaking alone. It was communicating with an external source somewhere in the darkness surrounding it. What had once been humanity's silent ambassador drifting through space had become part of a dialogue, a quiet exchange between our probe and an unknown presence beyond the Heliosphere. This revelation triggered a frantic search through decades of archived telemetry. Because if Voyager 2 was responding now, the question was no longer what it was saying, but who had spoken first. The realization that Voyager 2 was not transmitting alone sent scientists racing backward through time, deep into decades of archived telemetry, searching for anything that might resemble what they were witnessing now. The investigation eventually led them to files dating back to 1983, records that had long been classified, reviewed, and quietly forgotten. Inside those dusty data sets was a discovery that sent a chill through the room. Voyager 1, separated from its twin by billions of kilometers and traveling a completely different path through space, had experienced a strangely similar event 40 years earlier. There had been a sudden surge of unexplained data, a brief but noticeable deviation in trajectory that engineers at the time had attributed to an instrumental malfunction. The anomaly had been documented, categorized as a technical failure, and then archived, never to be seriously questioned again. At the time, there was no reason to suspect anything more. Voyager 1 was far from Earth, its instruments aging, and small irregularities were expected. But seen through the lens of what Voyager 2 was doing now, that old explanation suddenly felt fragile, almost convenient, as if something extraordinary had been hidden in plain sight for decades. When scientists placed the two events side by side, the implications became impossible to ignore. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, though separated by unimaginable distances and operating independently, had both experienced unexplained interactions that followed eerily parallel paths. These were not isolated glitches. They were echoes. Two probes launched together in 1977 had encountered something similar at different points in their journeys, as if an unseen presence had taken interest in both emissaries of humanity. The idea that emerged was deeply unsettling. Whatever existed in the darkness beyond the heliosphere was not reacting randomly. It was observing, waiting, and engaging selectively. The probes were not just drifting through empty space. They were moving through an environment where something else was aware of them. The universe, once imagined as a vast and indifferent void, now appeared to be a place where attention could be drawn, tracked, and perhaps remembered. And if Voyager 1's anomaly had been dismissed once before, the repetition with Voyager 2 suggested that this time humanity could no longer afford to look away. As the implications of the transmission settled in, astronomers turned their instruments toward the region of space where Voyager 2 was drifting, hoping to find something that could explain what was happening. Yet, what they observed only deepened the mystery. There in the darkness surrounding the probe was an object that defied classification. It was not an asteroid, not a comet, not debris left behind by some ancient collision. It emitted no detectable heat and reflected no familiar signature. Yet, it was undeniably present. Even more unsettling was its behavior. The object moved in perfect synchronization with Voyager 2, adjusting its position continuously to remain close as if maintaining formation. Calculations showed that this was not passive motion. This was deliberate. Rocks drift, debris tumbles, but this object followed. It tracked the probe with precision, behaving less like a natural body and more like an observer. A silent escort accompanying humanity's emissary through interstellar space. The assumption that Voyager 2 had been alone in the vast emptiness collapsed instantly. It may never have been alone at all. Hidden within the binary sequences transmitted by Voyager 2 was another revelation. A set of precise coordinates pointing to a location billions of kilometers beyond our solar system. When astronomers checked star catalogs and celestial maps, the result was disturbing. The coordinates matched no known star, no registered object, nothing visible in the cosmic ocean between stars. At first, the message seemed almost hopeful, as if it were an invitation, a quiet call saying, "Come and see." But the behavior of the accompanying object told a different story. This was not a greeting. It was a boundary. The coordinates marked a limit, an invisible line humanity was not meant to cross. The message carried an unmistakable implication. We know you are here. We are watching, and this is how far your expansion goes. Voyager 2 had not simply sent a signal back to Earth. It had been used as a relay to transmit a warning. Somewhere in the shadows of the cosmos, an ancient intelligence had chosen to reveal itself, not with words, but with restraint, reminding us that while we may explore, we are not the only ones who do. And perhaps we are merely children wandering through a garden that belongs to someone else. This story must be told carefully because, at its core, it is built on real events, documented anomalies, lost signals, unexpected recoveries, and decades of data that never fully fit the explanations we gave them at the time. Voyager 2 did not simply wake up after 11 years of silence. It transmitted something it was never designed to create. It followed an activation sequence that suggested intent. It responded rather than spoke. And it was not alone while doing so. When placed alongside the forgotten anomaly recorded by Voyager 1 decades earlier, a disturbing pattern emerges, one that forces us to reconsider the idea that the space beyond our solar system is empty, indifferent, or unaware. The object that moved in perfect synchronization with Voyager 2, the coordinates pointing not to a destination, but to a boundary, and the implicit message they carried challenged something fundamental about how we see ourselves. Perhaps the great silence of the universe is not an invitation to fill it with our presence, but a quiet rule to be understood. If an intelligence is observing us from the shadows, what does it see when it looks at humanity? Curiosity, ambition, innocence, or intrusion? The idea of a cosmic limit is humbling and terrifying at the same time because it suggests that exploration may not be forbidden, but is noticed. Somewhere beyond 20 billion kilometers, a small probe continues its lonely journey into the dark. And perhaps just behind it, a silent guardian still watches, reminding us that when we look up at the stars, we may no longer be looking alone. If you were in charge of NASA and received this message, would you respect the boundary or challenge it in the name of exploration? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if this story made you see the universe differently, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep looking up, just maybe with a little more caution. I'd love to hear what you think about this, so drop a comment below. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please share this video and subscribe to help the channel grow. Every bit of support counts.